many people in this room are familiar with the drawer filer? Okay. I don't know him, I met him once, but I wanted to know if you are familiar with the kind of Jewish-Palestinian activism and so on and so on. Okay, it's quite funny what you're going to see now.
Write his name down.
I think drawer. I don't know how he spells. Maybe filer.
Fighting German, yes.
Yeah. Now I have to swallow the word. Okay. This is the. I think that this is fascinating. What you're going to see now. It's completely new. Am I on camera now? Okay, so it's probably the first time I'm doing it in front of a camera. If something appears to be a Jewish problem, when Jews realize that a lot of people are upset with them, they sense the opposition. And it can be a lot of things. Palestine, banking, what else? Media. What else is annoying about Jews?
Culture institutions.
Sorry?
Culture institutions.
Cultural institutions. So how should we write it? Frankfurt School. Immigration, for instance.
Yes.
Yeah, immigration.
False flags.
That's a Frankfurt School. Multiculturalism. That is okay. Kind of multi-culti. I'm sorry, my handwriting is disaster. Yeah. My handwriting is so bad that they allow me to go through medical school without studying. All right, we have plenty of things. And neocon wars, yeah, Ziocons.
Yeah.
Holocaust. We'll deal with it. Actually, it's a good example. The big H. All right. You will see it in a second. All right? When Jews see that a lot of people are upset with them because of Palestine, because of banking, because of media, because of immigration, they support immigration, because of multiculti, because of Ziocon, because of the Holocaust that they really abuse and... They have one simple trick, and by the way, I speak as a Jew. I'm the Ezer now, okay? So it's easy. I can take it on me. It took us 2,000 years to get this trick, but it's perfect now. What we do, we invent, I call it a satellite opposition. Genius. When this happens, we start to fight. Which is normal. A discourse and dissent, yes? So if this is Palestine, we have drawer filer. Or JVP, or Jews for Peace, or Jews for Palestine, or yeah? If this is the banking, we have the Marxists. Okay? If this is the media, we have democracy later. You have about democracy now? Democracy later, more likely.
Born here.
Democracy, let's say democracy now, okay? Immigration. We like immigration and people come, it's great. But suddenly people say, oh, fucking Jews, they bring all these immigrants. We we need opposition. In France, for instance, there is this kind of idiot concept philosopher, Finkelkraut. Have you heard about him? You have this, you heard about it? Yeah. He's a famous character. He's a kind of a Jew against immigration. In England, we have Melanie Phillips, which is, she wrote a book called Londonistan. Suddenly, you have a Jew who is 100% against immigration, against Muslims, against everything. And they fight. And when they fight, you see it. When Jews fight, it's not like going fighting. Polite. Right there. So Melanie Phillips. Huh?
SD?
Oh, sorry, I don't remember.
Yeah. The Swedish Democrats.
Swedish Democrat. I don't know. Are they Jewish? I don't know.
They're pro-life.
Yeah, okay. Okay, obviously. Multiculti is exactly the same thing. You know, some of the biggest opponents of cultural Marxism are themselves Jews. You know, all the right-wing Jews. You know, Zion, you have Noam Chomsky, yeah? Noam Chomsky and the Jewish left, the progressive. Holocaust. Who is the biggest Holocaust? Who did more than anyone else to dismantle or to crack the traditional Holocaust narrative? Okay, I don't think so, but huh?
David or something else?
David Coe. Yeah, do you know his work?
Yes.
It's a must watch. He goes to Auschwitz and says, "Hey, what is happening here? This was a gas chamber. This was a gas chamber." Where you start to ask question, and it's unavoidable. By the time you finish the film, you realize that the room where is the gas chamber, never been a gas chamber, which is very interesting. You know, David Cole is a Jew. He's a good Jew. He's a Zionist Jew. Yeah, you ask him. Did you read? Anyone read his book?
Yeah.
In the book, he presents himself as a Zionist Jew. It's not surprising he became the party manager for the Republican Party. Sorry, not Conservative, Republican. But again, my great friend Paul Eisen. Have you heard about Paul Eisen?
Yes.
Again, a wonderful Jew. And he has some questions to ask. Again, nobody was subject to more harassment than Paul Eisen. To a certain extent, even I, Gilad Atzmon, I'm not a Jew anymore, but, for the matter, even I kind of stood up and asked some questions. Can we learn history properly? This is important to understand in order to understand my work. I define history as the ability to revise the past as we move along. Yeah? Which means that history, for me, is not saying what we learn from a book, but as we move along, our perception of humanity, of ourselves, is changing, and accordingly, our understanding of the past should be revised as well. And I will give you a beautiful example. Have you heard about the Nakba, the Palestinian ethnic cleansing in 1948? I never heard about it when I was in Israel. In fact, you never heard about it as well. In the 60s or in the 70s or in the 80s, nobody spoke about it. The Palestinians knew about it, obviously. But it wasn't an issue. In the 80s, few historians, some of them Palestinians, most of them Israelis. The Palestinian was Noam Salha, but the Israelis were people like Ilan Pape and Benny Morris. Look at Kosovo that happened in the 80s. They look at Kosovo and they said, oh my God, this is ethnic cleansing. This is what you call ethnic cleansing. They look back at 48 and they said, oh, this was also ethnic cleansing. So the rise of the notion of ethnic cleansing in the 80s helped us to understand that what happened in Palestine 30 years earlier was also ethnic cleansing. So as we move forward, our understanding, our terminology is changing, and we look at the past. This is what history, and the Holocaust is the one chapter in history that is extraterritorial for the historical research. We are not allowed to go back, which is absurd. Because now when we see what is happening in Israel, some people say, if this is how you behave, maybe this is why so many people were upset with Jews in Europe. Is it a legitimate question? I'll get arrested for it. Anyway, what we see that when there is a Jewish problem, there is always Jewish opposition, Jewish dissent. Now this is normal. For Swedes, the same happens. You have an idea and somebody else opposing it. But here is the change. Once you, the goyim, I don't like the goyim, I'm cynical, I'm sarcastic here, the Gentile society, see that the Jews have opposition. You say, oi, it's okay, we don't have to get involved, we let the Jews deal with it. And what happened then? Rather than being threatening to the Jews, you form a new theater. You all run away. The Jews are dealing with it. This is genius! This is fucking genius. Why it is genius? Because it is a symbiotic relationship. You do it because you're a humanist. You don't want this conflict with the Jews. If you don't run away, we would have a Shoah, we would have a Holocaust once a week. It's a lot of hassle. Trains, gas, and a lot of work. And guess what? The Jews, as much. Do you have a Holocaust museum in this town? You should try it. It's really refreshing. The Jews also, as much as they like the Holocaust, they don't like it once a week. They like it every 70 years. They like the time in between, when they can be the victim and everybody feels sorry to them and the Germans sending money. Paradise. So what we see here is really a symbiotic relationship between the Jew and the Goy. This explains exactly why the solidarity movement for Palestine is a masturbatory body. It's a form of masturbation. And I can prove it to you if you want. I can go through each term. But the truth of the matter is that they achieved nothing for Palestine. But when you look at this, Palestine achieved nothing. Banking, Marxists achieved nothing. The Marxists, they never stopped the banking, yeah? Media, democracy now, achieved nothing. Immigration, anti-immigration, all this nonsense achieved nothing. Interesting, no? It's very easy to explain. You understand what I can... This is too small. If this is And history is kind of major events. Sometimes they integrate or connected with each other, yeah? So let's say World War I. World War II. World War II. World War I and Balfour Declaration, okay? Balfour Declaration. World War II and Israel, establishment, foundation of the Jewish state, yeah? 1948. And let's say Cold War, that led, I don't know, to the Second Gulf War. Okay? Once you are in an event, you really don't have a chance to understand it. Do you understand what is happening now in Syria? Maybe you cannot even understand. Maybe few people in this room.
Greater Israel.
Huh?
Greater Israel.
Yeah, there are a lot of ways to look at it, but then what the Russians are doing, it's quite complicated. I'm sure that some people understand it, but usually it is natural to understand if these are historical events, it is natural to understand them a while later, in retrospective, yeah? So we say this is T1, T2, T5, yeah? When you look at World War I, you say, what is going on there? What is this Balfour Declaration? Out of the blue, the Brits giving the Jews a state, promising them, what is it? Bizarre. And then it takes you 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 95 years, which is where we are now, and say, I don't know what happened there. The Brits could knock down Germany. They needed the Americans. Americans were not willing to join the war with the Brits. And why? Because their bankers, the money, the people who were supposed to lend the money to the government, were Jewish bankers, Germans and Russians. They didn't want to give the money. They had to get something in return. They got Balfour Declaration. America was in the war. World War I is an internal Jewish debate. And we move on. The Russian Revolution. What is it? It was a Judeo-Bolshevik revolution. Yeah. So once you look at it in perspectives, it's few Jewish bankers and few Jewish revolutionaries fighting each other. And it is Germany that sent Lenin back to Petrograd. Another, you say no more. And you say no more. The fact that you gather here to listen to me is because somewhere this no more start to occur, to build up. The fact that I sold so many books. Because of that. Because we are getting now to the point where you become more clever than the system. Now, why you are stupid for 70 years? Not because you are stupid. You know what Jewish stupidity is? Jewish stupidity is misinterpreting Going's tolerance as naivety. They think that you are naive. They don't understand that for you to be tolerant is consistent. with your upbringing. This is what it means to be a nice German or a nice Swede or a nice Brit. To fight racism, which is right. But it doesn't mean to be subject or victim of Jewish racism. And at a certain stage, people don't take it anymore. What is so amazing for me about the history of World War II, and by the way, I read a very interesting book about it. It wasn't Germany. It wasn't National Socialist Germany. The opposition to Jewry was all over Europe. In fact, in Poland, it was even more severe than in Germany. And you know how the French Vichy government reacted? Because at a certain stage, people say no more. Now, this is a devastating result. Jewish emancipation occurred in French Revolution, started in French Revolution by the midst of the 19th century. Jews were pretty free in Central Europe. You're talking about 1840, 1850. By 1930, 70, 80 years later, the Europeans say, out. Out! So they move to Palestine. What the Palestinians are saying now? Out. How long? 70, 80 years? It is shocking. And the most obvious question that every Jew has to ask is, what is it about us? You know who are the only people who ask this question in the history of the Jews? You'll be shocked. The Zionists, the early Zionists. Herzl, Nordau, Jabotinsky. The early Zionism is the only moment in the history when Jews reflected. And you know what was their answer? They said, we are the ugliest people on this planet. It's shocking. If you read some of Nordau, Jabotinsky, Bell-Bochov, it's in the book. I have some quotes. It's quite devastating. If you find them, believe that this was kind of taken from the most radical pages in Mein Kampf. They say, we are ugly, we are usurers, we are capitalists, we are supremacists, but it's not our fault. It's not our fault. It all happens because we don't live on our land. Just see. Let us go back to our land and you will see the most beautiful people on this planet. And they went back to Palestine. And they formed those kibbutzim and they bought land and they started to work. And you know how long it lasted? 2 weeks. Before they found out that the Palestinians were cheaper. I obviously exaggerate. Sometimes it took more. Sometimes it took 15 years. Sometimes they had debates whether to work or not to work, and so on and so on. It is quite shocking. The only people who ever understood this problem were the Zionists, both left and right. If you ask me what is the solution, the next, rather than giving you the solution straight away, I'll extend it. My favorite German philosopher, Martin Heidegger, realized at a certain stage, and Lyotard writes about it in Heidegger and the Jews, that the most interesting aspect of historical thinking is what history is there to conceal. History conveys itself as an attempt to tell us what happened. But what it does for real is just concealing an institutional system that conceals our shame. So when it comes to the Jews, Jewish history is an orchestrated attempt to conceal the fact that wherever Jews go, they always have an Holocaust. Which is quite embarrassing, don't you think so? So our history is kind of a zigzag. It is always the goyim do something wrong and we are right and we are victims. Quite psychotic. Palestinians, 100 years, they achieved nothing. It's quite embarrassing. So the history is zigzag. American history. Where to start? They have to conceal the fact that they flattened Germany. They have to conceal the fact that they dropped atomic bombs on innocent civilians. They have to conceal the fact that they wiped out Vietnam. How do they conceal the facts? They build Holocaust museum in every city. Instead of looking into their own history, they join the Jews. I can tell you, in all those Holocaust museums in America, there is one thing they don't tell. The embarrassing fact that America didn't let a single Jew from Europe settle in America. So to a certain extent, they were supposed to take the blame. Britain as well. British Empire, what nonsense. You go to the Imperial War Museums in Britain. It used to be a beautiful museum. You know what it is now? A Holocaust museum. It's unbelievable. The Holocaust got nothing to do with the Brits. Except the fact that the Brits didn't let the Jews in. Or didn't let them go to Palestine. History is concealment of the shame. You should think about Sweden, I don't know. I was asked to give a talk about it in Japan. I started to look in Japan history, it's all shame, there is nothing, it was too complicated. I don't know about Sweden. What it means? It means that the role of the historian is identical to the role of the psychoanalyst. What the psychoanalyst is doing? Conceal the shame. Unveil the shame, sorry. Here's the problem. This is what a real historian is supposed to do. I don't remember when is the last time we had a real historian in the West. In a political correct environment, you cannot unveil anything. You only learn how to sustain concealment. But why came with this short introduction? Because when you see this dynamic, all the bells, all the alarms start to ring. When you see draw filer, you look into it. What is doing there? Is it for the Palestinians? Or is he trying to convey the image of a good Jew? Is he trying to divert the attention from the fact that Israel is the Jewish state? Yes. This is his job. And this is how it works. Now, fundamental to my work, I differentiate between three categories of Jews. I don't point at a Jew. So if you are a Jew, it's your business, it's not my business. If you identify as a Jew, it's my business. And then I differentiate the people who identify as Jews into three categories. Category one, they identify with, let's say, religion, with the Torah. They say, he or she could say, I'm a Jew because I believe in God, I follow the Torah. For the time being, let me tell you, this is an innocent category. I don't say that all the Jews who follow the Torah are innocent, but the category is innocent. If you look at Jewish history, Jewish religious rabbinical collectives have never been involved in any collective act against anyone. Category 2, ethnic. I'm a Jew because my mother is Jew. I'm a Jew because my grandfather, cousin, he was once in a synagogue. Yeah? Ancestry. Innocent. The fact that you have a Jewish mother doesn't make you into a war criminal. It can, but not necessarily. Category 3 is the problem. Political. Category 3 are the people who identify politically as Jews. And they are all problematic creatures. All of them. Without exception. From Noam Chomsky to Benjamin Netanyahu. And why? Because if I identify politically as a Jew, and you are not a Jew, you cannot join my club. And you know why? Because you are not racially qualified. So it's very clear that Zionists identify politically as Jews. Huh? They say, we are Jews, we can't. Yeah? But what about Jews for Peace? Can you join Jews for Peace? We have to chop you first. And you won't get it back after you leave the club. You can make a wallet out of it or something. It's expand. Yeah. Yeah, a hat. Smaller. A yarmulke. Yeah? This is a racially driven category. The Jewish left is not National Socialist, because National Socialism could be a beautiful idea. So we are just socialists within the concept of one nation. They actually adopt the most severe form of Hitlerism. But who are these people? A Jew settler from Brooklyn. Is he religious? Yes. Is he ethnically Jewish? Yes. Is he identified politically as a Jew? Yes. And what about Rothweiler? Is he religious? No, he's a communist. This is not a religion. By the way, communism is also Jewish religion. One of the most common mistakes is that Judaism is the Jewish religion. No! Everything can be a Jewish religion. In fact, Judaism is just one Jewish religion amongst many. Jewish religion is every precept, every concept that sustains a sense of chosenness. Communism. Oh, I'm so special, I like to share with everyone. This is chosenness. Neoconservatism, moral intervention. Oh yeah, I'm so special, I kill people just for moral reasons. cultural Marxism. These are all Jewish religions. And I tell you, unlike Judaism, that, as I said, rabbinical Judaism never been involved in any collective massacre. All the other Jewish religions left a lot of blood in the streets and a lot of churches burned. Whether it is in the Spanish Civil War or in the Holodomor or in the Bolshevik Revolution. So Dror Feiler, no, is not religious. But he's an ethnic Jew. He even visits Israel when he needs. Or claim. And he's a political Jew. This is a problem. Even when they did he did at a certain stage, he had a flotilla on a Jewish boat, a Jewish dinghy. Now, Otto Weiniger, for instance, wasn't religious, he was an ethnic Jew, he wasn't a political Jew. Correct? Even Marx, maybe ethnic, not a problem. The problem with Jewish politics is introduced by the third category. And this is something that we have to understand. Once there is a Jew operating politically as a Jew, you see this, you know that there is a problem. It's not your interests that are handled with Jewish political interests. Questions?
I want to just go back to that one. To me, it looks like you're saying there is a show on now, right?
Definitely.
Now, Henry Kissinger,
And people ask me if I would like to be a capo, and I said, definitely not cappuccino, maybe.
Henry Kissinger
Yeah.
is not a prophet. He is a guy who makes things happen, and he is a planner. About 5 years ago, he said officially that in 10 years, the state of Israel will no more exist.
Mhm.
And now I get it.
Yeah, I think that he was right. By the way, you know, the level of stupidity that it's quite amazing, because we have here a publisher that also published Israel Shamir. When I kind of found myself attuned to the Palestinian issue, I realized the crime that I was involved with. The Palestinian solidarity discourse, I'm talking about the 90s, late 90s, was an intellectual discourse. Along the years, we really managed to wipe out everyone who is kind of over 110 IQ. It became a pile of stupidity. Israel Shamir was actually the first one to be wiped out in 2001. But many others were expelled by the same people. But we saw it already then. You know, we could see that it goes into a very devastating place. Now, some of the people who look at, supposed to analyze the Israeli-Palestinian conflict are thinking in terms of military defeat. For sure, kids with 13 years old kids with knives, plastic tin and atomic bombs. But they can do one thing. They can demoralize the Jewish hedonist society. They can make it very clear to young Israelis that they don't have a future in the region. But by the way, not only that I think that Kissinger was right, I'm not so sure that the next Jewish disaster will happen in Israel or in the region. It can be a global thing. We are living in a global planet, you know, in a big global village. The animosity towards this politics is global. And they still don't see it. It's very funny.
I had several points I would like to ask about. You say this is global, and here in Sweden, in Malmö, there has been attacks on Jews, but it has been from Muslims, and we see Muslims migrating to all over Europe.
Yeah.
And well, that's one point I wanted to make. But
Okay.
also, we talked about migration of intellectual or elite Jews to Berlin. Do you
Israelis.
do you have any information on Adrian Salvucci's work on Jews moving to northern Argentina? Or
When is it? In the beginning of the 20th century, you mean? Or now?
it's now, and I think it's maybe it started in the 90s. I'm not sure.
What is the name?
Goldman Sachs has bought lots of land in Patagonia.
Oh, nice.
And Gates. And he's been writing reports about young Israelis posting.
Yeah, listen. I don't know enough about it, and I don't like to comment on things unless I'm really familiar. But what you are saying here actually affirms my argument. They are looking for new investment. I've been in Prague. I gave a few concerts in Prague last week, and it's the same story. You know, we see Israeli investors all over. Probably Sweden is too expensive for them. Now, the other point that you mentioned, there is obviously clear rising of animosity between Muslims and Jews. It is understandable, but I don't think that this is the primary Jewish problem. I think that that when it comes to Jews, the problem starts when the society turns against them. It is exactly what happened in Germany and in Poland before the war, before World War II, and in France. And this is I think what we are seeing now. There is a growing fatigue. It is quite a fascinating question. Why can't they see it? And by the way, when they see it, and this is actually the tragedy, when they see it, what we see is the rise of dissent, and then rather than fixing the problem, we see the kind of interesting dynamic that all of you running out and say, okay, let's have the party. Let's continue the party. And this is exactly what happened in the Palestinian solidarity movement. It is very important, something that I forgot to mention. The rise of solidarity for the Palestinian or Marxist or whatever, we had this big list. The rise of dissent is not conspiratorial. It is normal for a Jew who sees the crime that are committed in Palestine to say, sorry, I'm against it. It's very normal for Dror Filer to say, I don't want anything to do with it. The problem with Dror Filer starts when there is a flotilla or a boat goes to Palestine, and I didn't confirm it, so maybe I wasn't informed correctly. But then he put, everyone who went on the boat had to declare that he is not an anti-Semite. The problem starts when you exploit your position in order to extend your tribal interests. And we see it all the time. In Spain, how many here are familiar with the issues with Palestine, with the discourse involved, care about Palestine? So, how many people here kind of care about Palestine, are familiar with the conflict? Yeah, most of you. I'll make it, this is a very long talk, but I'll show you something amazing. People who are interested in Palestine for the last 15 years remember very well that when we all got interested in the topic, it was all about that ROR, right of return. Yeah, you understand? Right of return of the Palestinian people.
Yeah.
We have 6, 7, 8, some statistics like more than 10 million refugees now. Many of them are now in horrible conditions. In Yarmouk, in Lebanon, it's a disaster. This is the issue. This is the only thing that the Palestinians really united on and care about, and it's very simple. It's very simple. Gaza cannot be realized without thinking about the right of return. Why they are in Gaza? Because they were kicked out. They want to go back. It's simple. In 2001, 2002, 2003, 4, 5, a lot of Jews joined the movement. This is when Israel Shamir was kicked out, 2001, I think. And why they joined in? Because Palestine became a Jew problem. And they really felt that it's horrible what is happening in Palestine. They wanted to get involved. And you know what? They are very involved. The biggest campaign for Palestine is JVP, Jews for Peace. The biggest outlet is Mondo Wise. Couldn't be more Jewish than Mondo Wise. They're doing a lot of good stuff. But let's see what is left of that. In English, in British English, you say, fuck all. This has been deleted. Because if there is one thing that the Jews don't want, is the Palestinians coming back to the Jewish state. So instead of RR, we started to talk about end of occupation. End of occupation. What is end of occupation? End of occupation is legitimization of the Jewish state. Because we go back to 67, but all the Palestinians were kicked out in 48. It's bullshit. Our Palestinian elite, people like Ali Abu Nima, were too stupid to understand that there is a problem there. He is uniquely stupid. They start to talk about colonialism. Israel is colonialism, Israel is colonialism. Masturbation. Israel is not colonialism. Colonialism is an exchange between a mother state and a settler state. Israel is a settler state. There is no mommy. It's not a mother state. There is no mother state. Israel is not colonial. Why do they call it colonialism? Because the Jews in the movement feel better if we call it colonialism, because we don't look into the Jewish project. It is a Jewish project to come after 2,000 years. No, you have to move 2,000 years ago. What the fuck is that? Can you imagine the Roman, some Italians coming to London saying, hey, you have to move from Piccadilly, we've been here 2,000 years ago? It's exactly the same argument. Will the Italians get away with it? No way. So we use the word colonialism. Israel is not the most productive country. They are very good in blood diamond. It's a big industry there. They are very good in organ harvesting. There are some very clever Israelis who, kind of doing this high-tech thing. They are very good in making drones. But these are very small industries. Alright? And this is why we have this social unrest. Israel is now a safe haven for Jewish wealth. Now I tell you something that to think about. Lars, do you have a Holocaust shelter?
No.
What about you? No, nothing. Holocaust shelter? No. Anyone? Holocaust shelter? Clever. Must be a Jew. Now, why Israelis cannot find a flat to live in? Why cannot you know there is mass protest? Why? Because the real estate market is hijacked by rich Jews who buy their Holocaust shelters in Tel Aviv. Do you understand? They buy the Holocaust, and now if you have a Holocaust shelter, you cannot let a young family to live there because it must be ready with the rice in the milk. And now, what kind of people buying Holocaust shelters? People, this is gone, who know that there is an Holocaust ahead. Why do they know? Why you don't have a Holocaust shelter? Because you are not thinking that there is a Holocaust ahead for you. You're a healthy human being. You behave ethically. You don't have one who wants to kill me. One of the most interesting concepts that I think, and I take royalties for it, it's now kind of a Wikipedia, and one of my most clever concept ever, sorry to be kind of narcissist and arrogant, you know, but I was a Jew, is pre-traumatic stress. Many people suffer after wars, rape, a lot of that. Post-traumatic stress. It's understandable. When it comes to the Jews, we are dealing with pre-traumatic stress. This is why you buy a Holocaust shelter. You know, once we understand that we are dealing with these people, and I made them big, but in fact, it's probably here. What the people here? And by the way, this makes a lot of sense. You know that everybody speaks about the 99 and the 1%. You know the occupation movement. You know what I'm referring to. You know, we are the 99%, and you know 90% of the wealth. This is 1%. Yeah, if this is between 1 to 0, I don't think that there are people with zero intelligence. Let's say between 40 to 180, like this, you divide it into 100. We are talking about this. What do they think? I think that the people here understand everything. What the people here understand? It's a big question. What the people here understand? It's a bigger question. What is interesting is when you talk about, and Ernstine speaking about it, when you talk about American elite, was elite, in the beginning of the 20th century, 1950s, 1960s, these people were committed to society as a whole. They saw their duty leading society, looking into the poor. This is why there is so much philanthropy. In America, traditionally, what is interesting is that within the new rich, the cognitive elite, we see zero caring for the rest of society. This is what Ernstine already said in 1994. He said that this structure of cognitive partitioning is very similar to Latin America, where the elite is only concerned with this maintenance of its condition rather than commitment to society. And this is exactly where we are living. And I think that this is exactly where we are with the Jewish society. Zionism again is a very interesting moment in the Jewish history. Because in Zionism, we see this unique moment where Herzl, Jewish elite, Jabotinsky, definitely elite, major Jewish intellect, asshole, but an intellect, even Rothschild, even money. So within the context of Zionism, we saw for a while mutual relationship. It's interesting. And this is a very strong bond again. Questions?
I have a question. I hope it fits into this.
Yeah.
But anyway, I will ask it. How about the constellation between Russia, Putin in Russia, Iran and China? What happens globally? If we're thinking about the Jewish...
It is very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. Because usually, when I talk about that, you remember that I spoke about Israel, the Jewish state, and then we spoke about the Palestinians, and then usually I speak about Iran and the Shiite. Unlike the Sunnis, we have normal aristocracy. In the Shia world, we have cognitive elite. And this is why. And it's very easy to explain or to prove. You know, if you look at Ahmadinejad, he was from a very, very low background. He was raised to the top. They invested in him. Proper meritocracy. By the way, I believe that having aristocracy is a good thing. What is meritocracy? Meritocracy, one explains the negative, you know, it's kind of education for the rich. But the real meritocracy is that when you put the right man in the right place. So for the Islamic Republic, by the way, I just had a telephone call from Press TV and I could interview with them again, just in the break. This is Iran. This is Iran. This is Ahmadinejad. This is the Hezbollah. Sheikh Nasrallah. When I was in South Lebanon, they took me to the bunker where he was fighting. I was shocked. I said, what? Nasrallah? He was a fighter? He was an ordinary fighter. He was identified as a clever man, clever cleric. They made him into a leader. This explains why Israel or America never managed to buy them. America surrendered to Iran. Russia, Putin. Whether you like Putin or don't, I actually like Putin a lot. I mean, I like Putin a lot. He is a product of Russian modern communist aristocracy. He was raised through the KGB. It's a meritocratic thing. And it makes a lot of sense that the leader of a state goes through a very long process of education, studies, understanding of security, financial matters, unlike the American system, or the British system, or probably the Swedish system. What qualified your prime minister to be a prime minister? You know, when you look at America, it's quite amazing. The bunch of idiots they let to lead the state. Now, what is happening in America usually, 15 years after they leave the White House, they say, oh my God, what is happening in Palestine is apartheid. Well done, Mr. Carter. You know, in that sense, Obama is an incredible genius. He has managed in 7 years to realize that something is not right with Israel.